Okay, everyone. So there are majorly three type of variables: your input variables, your output variables, and your local values, right? Which you define. So I think everyone is able to see my screen, correct?
Yes, sir.
Input variables serve as parameters for Terraform module. So users can customize behavior without editing the source, right? Output variables are like return values for our Terraform modules, right? And local values are convenience features for assigning a short name to a expression, right? So if we want to write these into a simpler term, let's say you have your input variables, right? This is something which is like a function arguments. These are like a function arguments. So the people who have learned language, you know what is a function arguments, right? You pass them as inputs, correct?
Parameters.
Yeah, parameters which you pass, right? So that are your input variables. When you talk about your output variables, these are again like functions which
Return
return the value,
return types. Yes.
correct? So these are the functions which, or these are function return values,
Local variable is a variable that is defined within the function. If I'm right.
correct? So it's like function arguments, right? So you pass the arguments, right, at the runtime,
No, I'm
correct?
talking about local variables. Local variable is something where you define it within the function.
Yeah, it is a temporary local variables. Absolutely right. Correct. So your local variables, these are like functions, temporary local variables. We call them local values. Correct. So three types of majorly variables which are there, which you will be using as a part of program code. So each input variable is accepted by the module, but it has to be declared using your variable block, right? This has to be declared using your variable block. So var dot something, and then you will define, correct? So that we'll see in the program, or let me just quickly show you that right away in the code. So if you have this variable file, right, you will define all the variables. So you define the variable block. So variable, and that's enable SSH or variable IAM role. Do you see everyone? So variable IAM role, description, the name of an IAM role used to the various IAM policies created in this module. Correct? So variable is known as IAM role name. Correct? And how we are using this in the main file, let's copy this. It will be defined with var dot something, right? So let's go to the main file and let's search for it. So it says role is equal to var dot IAM role underscore name. Correct? So how you are passing the role? That okay, it is a variable. And how do you pass that variable? Var dot something, right? And this var dot something you will be defining as a part of the variable file. Is it clear, everyone? How are you passing the variables?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Correct? So you, let's say you want to use a variable over here, right? Which you want to dynamically run. So all your variable definitions will sit as a part of the variable file. Correct? But your when you assign it, assigning is with the help of an equal to sign. So role is equal to var dot equal to. So let's say var you input at the runtime. So this role will get the value of the IAM role which you define or enter at the time of runtime. Is it clear, everyone?
So in this variables you are calling here var dot. So somewhere in variables you have defined its variable as a var, right?
Yeah, so that is what I have already showed, right? We looked at this, then we searched the same variable in that main.tf, right? So this was the variable file and that we checked in the main.tf.
Okay.
Correct, everyone? Anyone who
Yes.
is still not clear? So let me write it for you so that you can easily memorize. So each variable, or I should say each input variable, each input variable can be, uh, how do we say, or each input variable which is accepted, which is accepted by the module must be declared using a variable block. This is what we have spoken about, variable block. Similarly, we'll talk about your resource block. We'll come to that as well. So this is a variable block. Similarly, we'll talk about a resource block as well, right? So the name of the variable which you're defining can be any valid identifier except like the specific keyword you use, right? So when you define the name of the variable, name of the variable can be any valid identifier except, what are the exceptions that you have to keep? First is it should not be, let's say, source. You cannot define a variable with the name source, right? Or version, because these are predefined variables or keywords, right? As a part of Terraform. Or you cannot use the word providers, correct? Or you cannot use count, right? Or for each, right? Or life cycle. I don't recall others.
But I can use source underscore one as a variable name, sir.
Sorry?
But I can use source underscore one as a variable. Sir.
Yeah, these whatever I'm writing, exact same you cannot reach. And these for each is together. It is not separate. It is for each. And what else? There are, I think, eight. One, two, three.
Plan, apply,
No, no, they,
destroy.
yes, there, the other one is depends on, depends on, correct? And your eight one is locals, right? These are the something which you don't use. Others, apart from that, you can use it, right? They have not defined something like plan or something, but usually those are not there. So I will talk about something which Terraform website says, but I don't think they accept plan as well, right, Dhanush?
Yes, sir.
Correct. So now when you're defining arguments for your variable declaration, so in your code, you see when you're defining the arguments are these, right? Descriptions,
Yes,
type,
sir.
default, right? So type is string, description is this, default is this. Similarly, if you're using the type as bool, so you are passing some default value that if no one passes any value, right? then it will by default accept it as a true. If you're not passing this default value over here, then it will always be looking for an input at the time of execution. So we define default values so that if there is any not, there is the value which is not passed at the time of execution, it will look for it. Make sense, everyone? What does this default value means?
Yes, sir.
Everyone else, is it clear? What is the use case of this argument? Okay, Sinoy. So what is the use case of default? Sinoy, why are we using default over here? Am I audible, Sinoy? Jagat, why are we using default?
Yes, sir, man. So this will take that whenever we didn't pass any value, right? It will take the default value.
Correct, correct, absolutely right. Okay, so that is why we are passing the default arguments. So the arguments for variable declaration, let's come to the whiteboard. There are arguments for variable declaration. Correct. First is your default. Correct. Next is your type. Right. So when you talk about your default, this is passing a default value which makes this variable as optional. Why do I say that? Because if you are not passing the value for this variable, it will accept the default value. Correct. And if you don't pass this default value, or you don't define the default, then it will keep on eagerly waiting for that, give me an input, then only I'll be able to use it. Correct. And the type which you are defining, the type in the argument in a variable that are accepted. So the type argument, the type argument,
It defines the data type of the variable.
yes, yes. So how to write it? So it's like a type constraint. It's like a type constraints, right, are created from a mixture of type keywords and type constraints, right? Type keywords and type constraints. So in this, the examples are your string, other is your number,
List. I also saw list as
correct? Your bool and everything. Whatever is the type which you have input, it can be anything which can be there, right? So those you can define. So type is a argument or the type argument in a variable that are accepted are these specifically which are defined, and these have been derived from a mixture of type keyboards and type constraints, right? These are something which are programming concepts. If you want to know about what are type keyboards and type constraint, then you have to go deep dive into the coding part, right, everyone? So that is something which you need to just review once. Now apart from that, if you are defining any kind of,
description.
yeah, corrected. So no description is there, but before that, when you want to allow any kind of complex type, right, as collections, and you want to enter a type to be different from string, number, and bool. So there are other options as well, right? So we are still on type, right? We have not completed that. So this type also allows complex types as collections. And in this, you have again
Objects.
your you have list, you have set, you have tuple, correct?
Map.
Yes, you have map, you have object, correct? So these are the things which you define. So in your list, you can again pass your types, right? Inside this, you can pass your types. I'm just writing an example, right? You have to check the exact syntax that we'll check. And we can pass set, we can pass tuples, right? Maps we can also pass. Other than if we are passing the object, then in the object you have to specify some kinds of attribute name if you're passing. I'm giving this example from the one which I'm using in my organization, right? Attribute name passing, and that attribute name is similar to some specific type, and you are defining this as a list of maps. So several values will come, and you can just close this multiple values, and so on. You can add multiple entries in this object, right? So if both type and default arguments are specified, the given default values must be convertible to a specified type, correct? So whatever specific inputs have been given, it will always look forward for that. Now, whenever you're passing your input variables, right? So there is one more thing which is there is your description, right? There is one more thing which is your description. What does description say? That is the purpose of the variable and what kind of value is expected, right? So when you should, this is something which you are writing, especially the description part. So being a good developer, you have to clearly tell that what you are looking for. So anyone who is seeing your repository and wants to see what kind of input to pass, he will come to your code, it will see the variable type, and after seeing the variable type, it will see the description, and from that he can make out that okay, what kind of value I have to pass. Is it clear, everyone? That is the use case of the description. So the purpose of the variable is defined. The purpose of variable is defined.
So the description will not be used anywhere else.
No,
It is just
is
like a comment.
is like a comment.
Okay,
Correct.
sir.
But comments are usually not readable, but this is readable.
Yes,
Correct.
sir. Okay.
It's like the thing you pass in functions where you have the
Yes.
description.
So purpose of
Triple
the
quotes. Yeah.
variable and is defined, and one more thing, right? And what kind of value and what kind of value is expected. Correct. What kind of value is expected on this. Now, there can be some custom validation rules which you can define. So by adding those validation blocks to your variable block, so validation blocks require some conditional block which is there, that when this is true, then it is this, and when it is false, then display some error message, right? So there is one example which I remember from my organization, where whenever we are passing these inputs, there is one thing which you have defined is a custom uh, validation rules, right? And these custom validation rules, why we are defining that when you add this validation block, this validate your variable block, right? So by adding validation block to variable block, correct? So validation block requires condition block, requires condition block. So if the condition is true, if condition is true, then it runs. If condition is false, then no, it is not failing, but at that time, then we have added a, then we
Error
display,
message.
yeah, we display a error message. Error message. So that is how you can write your code with some conditions that when it should be running and when it should not be running. And there is also one scenario we implemented that if there is any kind of failure of an expression which determine the validation decisions, you can use the there is one function, I think it is a can function, which is there, which you can use. So that is something you can define. So we'll see that in an example. But there was one example which we used in an organization that the variable was passed as an image ID, in which we typed the image ID as string, and the description was that the ID of the EC2 instance, which which we are using on the server or which we want to use, right? And in the validation block, we have defined some regular expression with the help of this scan command, right? Let me see. Are we not going too complex, right, everyone? Because in our organization, we are working at a very larger scale, but this is fine with everyone, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir,
sir.
it's fine.
So there is a, what do I recall? There is one, yes, custom validation rules. Custom validation rules, Terraform. I just want to show you one example, right? Okay. So you are passing some variable, right? See the word can is there, everyone? There is a can command. So we are using this can command as a regular expression, right? So you are passing the type as string, that the prefix used for GCP projects or something, and you add a validation condition in which if the regular expression, whichever you are passing that as an expression, if this expression is failing, right, and it cannot find a match, right, whatever match we're doing. So if it doesn't find the match, then this regular expression will fail and this variable will not be used. So it can clearly say that, okay, this image ID or this prefix is not valid. You got the point? So what we are saying that, okay, if there is a W plus something here, right?
Sir, I think it's this symbol, sir.
Sorry?
Apart from letters and numbers, you have the special characters, sir. That is what
Yeah,
is written.
correct. Means
It's a cap
you
symbol, right? Cap W plus dollar.
yeah, so it is a cap. In our
Mm,
case, we have used a cap and a
mm,
word we have used as AMI because we are
yes.
identifying that it is a correct image ID or not. So if the regular expression in the name is AMI dot dash and the numbers, then in our case, the variable is expected, right? Accepted. Otherwise, it says it is not a valid image ID, right? But here they are passing a prefixes. What it is, like network prefix is there or what they're passing, I'm not sure, but it says that in that prefix it is saying W plus dollar something which is there, right? So if that is found in their description, right? Then it will accept that okay, it is a valid project or valid prefix is there.
The
Otherwise,
cap W indicates the capital W. I mean, I'm just guessing it. Capital W plus dollar, something like that.
yeah, capital W plus dollar. This W is small w, but along with this
Yeah.
expression, it finds everything. Then it will take.
Mhm.
So it is
Yeah.
looking at the quotes, right? It is whatever is inside in the quote. It is looking that in this project underscore prefix, what you have passed. Okay. So at organization level, we are using these things, not the direct variable.
So
Is it
the
clear, everyone?
project underscore prefix is another variable.
Yes, yes, correct.
We are referencing another variable in this condition.
So you are referencing the input which have been defined inside project underscore prefix.
Whatever this regular expression there, it will look that group in this where dot project prefix
Correct.
with that
Absolutely right.
statement. Yes.
Is it clear, Sandeep?
Yes, sir. Yes. Okay.
Okay. So if you want to note this, take a screenshot, or if I can paste this as in chat as well. If you want to use this, you can use this later on as well. And most of the good organizations which are using Terraform, they will definitely give this, because sometimes you can have human errors while passing a AMI ID. You pass something which is not correct, right? So that is why, to make your your code more robust and more informative, you do these things. That the error code will clearly tell us that okay, uh, the problem is with the your that some values is not correctly passed or some issue is there, and you can fix that immediately instead of troubleshooting the entire code. Is the use case clear, everyone? Everyone is silent.
Sir, I think they have given the Terraform documentation link there itself. So there it is more clear. Like
So
you
I
see
will
documentation word, right? There.
Terraform
No,
documentation.
no. You are not there. Here you can see on the top. No. Go up. Uh, near that picture, you see Terraform documentation. Looking at the Terraform documentation after simple validations. The
After,
article, the simple validations. Looking at the Terraform documentation, we already see some examples. There's a sentence there in the first line itself. At the end of the first line,
okay, fair enough.
I think there's a clear example. This is a more clear example.
Okay, yeah. So this is similar to this I was using, right? This is the image ID which I was referring, that it is not a valid image ID. So we are passing and checking the validation of the image and the regular expression. See, it is equal to AMI dash dash. You got the point? Correct? So by this, you can clearly find out that yes, the image ID is valid or not. So this condition is a validation condition which you are using. So use this as well.
Sir, can we also use resource attributes in validation?
Any examples?
Maybe like the EC2 resource will have an attribute like instance ID, right?
Hmm.
Can we reference that in a validation condition for some other variable?
Means if you are defining the conditions, means just like we said about the instance ID, right? So instance ID always starts with I dash something, right? So you can, okay, so what is your input first of all?
No, sir. The instance ID will be created in runtime only. Can we reference that attribute?
No, again the question is, you are passing that as a variable. So what kind of variable you are using? Why are you passing instance ID in variable? There should be some use case, right?
No,
Where
sir.
you
I'm checking. I'm checking. I'm in the condition only I'm using.
okay.
I'm checking the input with the instance ID. Maybe I'm checking if they're same or something.
Okay, so means again, so let's say you are doing it, fine. So again, what is the use case? What are you trying to check?
Maybe if the user input is equal to instance ID, maybe if I'm checking like that.
Okay, user input is instance ID and user. Okay, so you are saying, okay, so let's say condition says here double equal to you have instead of AMI dash, put the entire instance ID. If an instance ID is there, then you can use it. Your purpose is
Yes,
that
sir.
only, right? That I want
Yes,
to
yes.
put the entire instance ID. So that is your wish, right? AMI dash, you put your
No,
entire
no,
instance
not
ID.
like that, sir. Like we defined a resource AWS instance.
Hmm.
Okay, and when it deploys, we get attributes no with that resource.
You get the
AWS.
output.
No, sir. We can tap into the attributes no dot instance ID dot name. We can use no.
See, when you are defining a resource block, okay, so you tell me in one example, right? Let's not discuss that. You tell me any example which we can use.
Okay, sir. Let's say the instance ID has a security group. Okay,
Okay,
the instance has a security group,
correct.
and we are getting that after deploying it. We are not passing it directly the security group.
Hmm.
We are getting it from the attribute of the instance.
Right. So you have a data block, right? You have
Yes,
learned about
yes,
data block. So with the data
yes,
block,
sir.
you can go to the instance and you can say that, okay, my resource is AWS instance. And on that instance, you can fetch all the parameters which are there. And from
Yes,
that
and I
parameter, you
can
can,
use that data block inside this condition also. It will work fine. That is
again,
what
my
I'm
point
asking.
is you wanted the security group. Why you want to use that as a part of inside this? You already
Yes,
have a
sir. My
data.
examples are not fine, but I just want to know if something like that can be checked inside.
So that I already answered. You put your entire instance ID over here. If you
Mhm.
put your entire instance ID, so anything related to that instance, if wherever you are fetching the data, or
Hmm.
with respect to that instance, if you are looking for any kind of security group, so it will see that, okay, if instance ID is this, it will give you your security groups or whatever the tags have been defined on that instance. Ultimately, you are using that as an input, right? So the if the input is instance ID, which is this, then give all the parameters, because there will be, let's say, hundreds of instance ID being passed and you are only concerned with one instance ID. So you match that instance ID over here and give the result that, okay, all these tags are there. Correct?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Means the ultimately your instance ID is something which you're passing as a variable, but your use case will not fulfill anything in your code because you have
Yes,
better
sir.
things available with you like data block by which you can easily fetch the security group and you can use it somewhere.
Yes, sir. Yes. Okay.
Correct? Okay, fair enough. So we were on a custom validation rules. I think custom validation rule we have clearly discussed that it will reflect all the
Okay,
issues
this is just a declaration, right? But when those will be assigned, like those variables?
at the runtime, at the time of execution.
Okay, at the runtime, like wherever that assignment happens, that will check with the against validation rules, right? And if it happens,
Correct. So at the runtime,
okay,
you gave some input. Now
okay,
it will validate that whether that input is valid or not. If the input is not valid, it will say that, okay, it is not good. Let's move forward.
okay, okay. So at the runtime, we will pass the values to it.
At the runtime,
Like we will pass, or the output of some other action will be passed as input to this, right?
anything can be
Okay,
there.
anything
Means
can be there. Yeah. Okay.
anything can be there. If your code says
Mhm.
that use the output of a previous process
Yeah.
or previous thing, then you can use the output from there as well.
Correct. Correct. Yes. Okay.
And
Okay.
that
Got it.
is
Mhm.
and that is where your dependency block comes, right?
Mhm.
That is
Yes.
where
Yes. Yes. Yes.
got that it
Dependency
depends
block.
on. And there is one variable which you define as depends on, right?
Correct.
Which we are excluding. So it will depend on something.
Okay, Abhinand. Yeah.
So usually Terraform is something which is logically splitted into two parts. One is your core and other is your plugins, right? So Terraform is logically split into two parts. One is your core, other is your plugins. Correct? Now, what is a core? Core is helping you to use any kind of RPCs to communicate with your Terraform plugins. RPCs in a coding language are what? Okay, so Sandeep, what is a Terraform provisioner? Sandeep, what is
Sir,
Terraform
it is
provisioner?
the one which executes the Terraform file, sir. It can be a remote provisioner or a local provisioner.
Hmm. So how it will work?
Sir, let's say if we
Which
are using cloud as
hmm,
the provisioner.
provisioner
So our
or provider?
no, provider is like AWS, Azure, and all.
Hmm.
Provisioner is like it is basically local provisioner or remote provisioner.
Okay. So in which category it will fall? Core or plugins?
Core.
Okay. So how it will work if it is part of code?
And provisioner is what the provisioner is the thing that is actually doing the tasks via the providers, with the help of the providers.
So provider exists at the Terraform core, or that act